Welcome to another episode of On the Mark with Arpit. Two matches that we're going to focus on tonight are the Klassiker, which happened last night, and a big match coming up in the English Premier League, Manchester City versus Arsenal. So those are the two matches that we're going to talk about. As always, Mark Seagraves here with me. Mark, welcome to your show. Obviously, the Klassiker is what we're going to talk about in the Bundesliga. You covered the match for Sony as well. So just first up, Bayern, expected them to crumble like that?
Well, they haven't been playing well, have they, this season? So, yeah, I did. I just thought that the team that they put out, the midfield was really poor for them in terms of Lehmer and Goretzka. No creativity at all in there. And, the game plan for Dortmund was to obviously defend and then break. And they did that to a man. And, we highlighted Adeyemi, who was a showcase, for the German national team. And he was always a threat against a Bayern Munich team that looked so out of sorts, so jaded, so nonplussed, really. It's as if they'd given up already. And obviously they've given up because Tuchel's come out and said that the Bundesliga is Dortmund's. Yeah. So it looks like
to Leverkusen, he said.
Yeah, again, I watched that game as well, and Leverkusen dominated the game, should have won it by a lot more, but managed again, like they always do, to score a couple of goals late on in the game. And 13 points, that's unassailable, isn't it, right now?
Yep, that is unassailable. Of course, Leverkusen, I'm looking at that because Hoffenheim led in that match. We're not going to focus on that match. Of course, it's very important for them. Schick with the winner in the 91st minute. Andrik with a goal in the 88th minute. It's late. But that is the team that is Leverkusen. They don't give up. Anytime they can make a comeback. But we're going to talk about Bayern Munich and Dortmund. And Bayern, interestingly, Mark, I was reading about this. No yellow cards in this game. No yellow cards for either side. When you talk about the Klassiker, one of the fiercest rivalries in the Bundesliga, you think, well, there should have been. We don't like yellow cards, but there should have been one.
And it wasn't that type of game, but yeah, you're right. It's not a derby game in terms of a derby is two teams from the one city, but it was a good game. If you're a purist like me in terms of defensive wise, I think it was a really good game to watch. Something not quite right at Bayern Munich. We know the manager's going to leave at the end of the season. We know certain sections of the team don't like the manager and don't want to perform. He's then taken the likes of Kimmich, who's been a midfielder for the last 2 or 3, 4 years, put him back to right back.
Yeah.
He's just trying to, I don't know what he's trying to do. He can't see the wood for the trees. And it just showed yesterday. I thought Dortmund would win. I told everybody that Dortmund would win. And Harry Kane had a couple of good opportunities. Yeah, and Harry Kane had a couple of good opportunities where probably on another day he'd have scored a couple, but take nothing away from Dortmund. They absolutely defend. And also, I will say, because I'm not a great lover of Harry Kane, of course, but also of Matt Hummels. I think at 35, defending-wise, he's been poor, but he was absolutely outstanding, as all of the team were defensively to a man. And so, the Dortmund absolutely deserved the win.
Okay. So, you know what? When we start this podcast, just going to let everyone know that Mark doesn't like to be told what we're going to talk about. He says, just bring it on. We're going to have a conversation. But I write a few points so that, I get it in. Mark, these are the points that I've written. Obviously, you can't see them very clearly. I've written Max Hummels, 35, brilliant. I've written Kimmich at RP with a question mark. I've spoken about Harry Kane. And you've just gone through all of those points. I feel like the podcast is already over. But no, just Kimmich. I want to focus on Kimmich. You mentioned him in passing. Joshua Kimmich in that right back position. I know they have their problems. Mazraoui came up in the end. He's coming back in that position. He's great. But yeah, Kimmich in that position, you just feel like Thomas Tuchel could do better just keeping him in the midfield.
Well, he obviously doesn't think he can play in midfield because he's taken him out. They've also got Lehmer. And Lehmer's played at right back a lot of the times for Bayern Munich this year. But he put him in midfield. I don't know whether he was trying to dominate in midfield. But by dominating in midfield, the only way you can do that is by having the ball and being creative. And both of them, Goretzka and Lehmer, are not creative. At least Kimmich can get hold of the ball and pass it and link the play. But having said all of that, he did okay on the right-hand side. He got a few crosses in. but you can just tell from body language and just, you know, no one sacks the manager with 8 games to go, basically, and to expect something to happen. So I think the Bayern Munich upper hierarchy have just said, like, even 8 games, 10 games ago, the league's gone. Let's get him out. Let's. It needs a whole new outlook. The team. There's so many players in there that have been there for too long, and the players they're bringing in, Arpit, you know, Dyer from Tottenham, not good enough. Bowie from Turkey, not good enough. And Zaragoza, who's come in, hasn't played a game. So the only bright spark really has been the introduction of this young kid called Pavlovic, who wasn't playing last night because he was injured. So there's a lot of work to be done at Bayern Munich. And, you know, when we look at managers wanting to go, or them wanting managers to go to Bayern Munich, Xabi Alonso's not going. So there must be something not quite right there, whether there's money issues or because they have to clear out. Choupo-Moting and all of these players have to go. Even Gnabry, all of them players need to go out, and then they get fresh blood in. But it just, I mean, for Bayern Munich to be 13 points behind with 7 games to go, it's just unimaginable, isn't it?
It is unimaginable. I was reading a little about this match. I watched it. I watched the post show as well. I watched you gloat only a very little bit, considering your prediction was correct in this one. And one of the lines I read, I'm just going to say it away up. Bayern's 11-year grip on the Bundesliga Meisterschale is finally slipping like a Stein in a sweltering beer keller in the grasp of a merry dipsomaniac who has at last won too many. I have no idea what that means. But basically, 11 years, they have dominated. Did you get it by any chance, considering you like a drink?
I love a drink, and I've been to the Oktoberfest as well. But I don't know what a dipsomaniac is, so I'll have to look that one up. But listen,
Urban Dictionary.
Dortmund hadn't won at the Allianz Arena for 14 years. You know,
no, so 10 years, I think. It was 10 years, a decade. Yeah.
Okay, well, 10. I thought it was 2014. Oh, yeah, 10,
2014.
Yeah, sorry. And I mean, previous games they've played, they've gone there as if they're going to get beat, and they've set up to not get smashed, right? This time, there was a total difference. They've seen the vulnerability in Bayern Munich. And Bayern Munich now have got only one opportunity to get some silverware, which is the Champions League. They'll get knocked out against Arsenal. Arsenal will do them over the 2 legs. I'm telling you now, they will, because they're a far better team than Bayern Munich right now. So there you have
early
it.
Predictions. I like this. I'm actually gonna clip this bit and put it out. You know, I searched through our podcast to see what I can make snippets of. This is what I'm gonna do. Dortmund, and we'll come to Harry Kane as well. You mentioned him a couple of times. I know. I know if you made a team, he would be one of the strikers you would consider. I know. I also know that you think he should be doing better. Best return on debut in the Bundesliga, 31 league goals. Mark, how much ever you might not consider him best or whatever, it's not his fault Bayern in this position.
No, it's not. I mean, he's come in and done exactly what he's being asked to do, which is score goals. And that's the one thing we know about him. My only gripe with Harry Kane, and everybody, the journalists and all of these football pundits say he's world class. I don't think he is. I don't think in 20 years' time he would be ranked in the top 10 or the top 20 of the last strikers over the last 30, 40 years. You know, and that's my only gripe. He's a fantastic top player, top goal scorer, right? That's what he is. But do you know what I do believe is after the winter break, he came back and looked rusty. And I mean match rusty. And again, they've had an international break with his ankle as well. He's come back and he was injured as well again. But the 2 chances that he had with his head, or the 3, he had one at the end where he scored and it was offside. So there's no, you can't get away from his stats. His stats are fantastic in terms of goal scoring. But that was my only gripe with Harry Kane. But having said all of that, Arpit, you know, if you took Harry Kane out of Bayern Munich, where would they be? right now. 31 goals.
That's my question.
And
Yeah.
I know. I
Yeah.
mean, they'd be in like, would they be in the top 4? So, they've bought well with him.
I mean,
but having said all of that, Arpit, will he be there next year? Because the jungle drums are sounding now, aren't they? That he's going back to either Tottenham or Chelsea or even Man United. So, he might want to jump ship. If he goes to Man United, he'll never win another trophy either, will he? So,
I was just going to tell you that apart from, and I'll just ask you this, Mark, because you've been a professional footballer, and as fans, we come up with these theories, and and now it's social media, so there's memes and all these jokes about Harry Kane not having won a trophy, and how they talk about this voodoo around him and every club that he goes to. And of course, it's sort of been vindicated. It's not true. There's no science to it, but it's sort of been vindicated because he's gone to Bayern, a team that has won for 11 years, and they're not going to win anything. Do you think that's something that actually in the professional setup gets considered now?
If he didn't score as many goals as he did, then yes. But if he goes to Man United, he's going to get 30 plus. If he goes to Tottenham, he's going to get 30 plus. Any of the teams, he's going to do what he does. There was an advert in England where it does what it says on the tin, and he does that. Whatever he says, I'm going to score goals. He scores goals. His record dictates that right the way through his career. And wouldn't it be unfortunate if he didn't win anything from being such a... I mean, maybe the ironic thing, Arpit, is they'll win the Euros, which is not a club, it's his country, and that might be the only piece of silverware that he may win. So, yeah, the irony would be lost, wouldn't
Talk
it?
about optimism.
Yeah.
Talk about optimism. But Seagraves United, if Seagraves United is looking for a striker, they will not consider this voodoo of Harry Kane not winning a trophy?
No. I mean, obviously, if Seagraves United would be one of the top teams, wouldn't they? And you want
because
the top
of the
players
defender,
to come.
yeah.
But you want the top players to come. He is a top player. I've never said he's not a good player. I've said he's not world class, but he's a top player. And if you look at his figures, you know what you're going to get. And so, it isn't just about strikers. You've got to look at your midfield, your defenders, and if you've got that in order, then strikers the icing on the cake. They're the ones that are going to win you the games, win you the titles. But similarly, the defenders are the ones. If you looked at that game yesterday in total, it was the defenders that won the game for them. Forget about the 2 goals they scored. It was because they got blocks, they stopped crosses, they put their body on the line. So, but I would sign Harry Kane, absolutely, but I wouldn't put all my eggs in the one basket for him. So,
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay, got it. Just obviously the game, you've analyzed it. We've spoken about Bayern not being at the races so much. I'll get this in here because we had a slight bit before we started recording, and I said don't answer it because while watching the game as a fan, I thought Dortmund weren't that great. I mean, you see the chances that Bayern created. If they put 1 or 2 away, it would have been a different game. So I thought Bayern obviously weren't as good as we expected them to be, but I didn't think Dortmund were that great either. You disagreed with that?
I did. I think the game plan, Tersic's game plan, was to sit tight, and I'm sure in his dream the night before, he would have thought that one of his players would have scored in the first 10 minutes to put everything up, under orders, if you like, and they did. And they rode their luck on numerous occasions.
Okay.
Meyer, the keeper, done a couple of really good saves. Obviously, Harry Kane missed a couple of chances. Musiala wasn't on his game in any way, shape, or form, but that was because they defended really well against these players. So I take nothing away from Dortmund. It was a masterclass of coaching, really, and goals change games. So that early goal makes Bayern Munich a little bit more hungry to go and get so it leaves them a bit more vulnerable for the counter-attack. And what they had, Dortmund, they had Adeyemi with pace, and they had Jadon Sancho with pace on the right-hand side. And all they were doing was trying to get it up to either Füllkrug or into their feet so they can turn and get at them. And they did that. And Adeyemi's goal, the first 10 minutes, what he did was slide rule ball. He got at De Ligt and put it in. And the second one was what it was. But a great goal from another guy who's played really well yesterday was Ryerson. Hasn't been in the team all the time, but he was absolutely outstanding. And I just thought over the 90 minutes, if you'd look at it as a collective, Dortmund deserved to win. Their game plan, it was as if Bayern Munich didn't have a plan B. You know, it was like, if we can't do it this way like we normally do it, and all kudos to Terzic and also to all of the players. I mean, and the big thing was it put them back into the Champions League spot. You know, they're fourth now ahead of Leipzig.
Yeah, I know. I was watching that, and we were obviously talking about how good the result was for Borussia Dortmund. But I was thinking, next week they could just be a completely different team. They could come up against a relegation-threatened team and just crumble in front of them. That's Dortmund. We're not going to focus on Dortmund. Just quickly, we're going to end this topic around the Klassiker. Thomas Tuchel is German, okay? And one of the things about Germans that I have experienced, and I could be wrong, efficient to the core, they have the systems in place. They're usually not very high on emotions, is what I feel in the normal interactions. They're not very high on emotions. Thomas Tuchel, I was watching his reactions, whatever the coverage was showing us yesterday, even when the first goal went in and it touched the keeper's hand. The kind of reactions he has, and we've seen it in the Premier League as well, right? I think he had a little tiff with Antonio Conte with a handshake once or something like that. His expressions sometimes, you think, and now it's done, he's going, but do you think it's a little detrimental to players who are playing for him?
Well, I think he's doing it, especially now at Bayern Munich. It's not to the players, it's to the people upstairs, isn't it? He's showing his displeasure, basically. The goal went in, he wasn't bothered. It looked like he was nonplussed. I'm going to be leaving. I'll bet you he can't wait to leave. So every day in training, the players won't be at it, because the players know as well that he won't be there. So some will like it, some will be disappointed, like Harry Kane. He's brought Harry Kane in, Dyer in. So then players will want to play for him, but knowing full well that this is why you're hearing all of these stories about Harry Kane coming back to the Premier League, because it's an easy out for Harry Kane. If a new manager comes in, he'll say, it's not for me. I need to and I wouldn't be surprised if he did move. But body language is everything, isn't it? If you look at players who put their arms up in the air and go, it's shocking, and all similarly, if someone's not interested, and it looks bad and unprofessional, but I can understand it, because Tuchel doesn't need this. He doesn't need, it's not like a job that it's his last job and he needs the money. He's a very wealthy boy. He's had a lot of good jobs, and I'm sure he'll get a better job or an equally as good a job next year. So, I agree with you. It looks shocking. But he's a human being at the end of the day, and I think most of us would probably do the same, wouldn't we? We wouldn't be, well, it's not going to ruin my Saturday night. Let's have it that way.
I know. I mean, I can be quite over-expressive at times, though I try to keep a composed face here, because this whole German thing was, I'll just quickly get this in. I got lost in Germany once, and I didn't understand the systems. I got the train apparently split in two, and I ended up in a village instead of going to Prague. And I was trying to make a puppy face to the lady at the counter so that she would give me a free ticket in exchange, because I was lost. So I made a puppy face. I thought it would work. And she just looked at me and said, what happened to your face? Quite literally. So they don't do those sorts of emotions in everyday life, which is why I find it a little surprising Thomas Tuchel so over-expressive. But yeah, that's about the Der Klassiker. Do you want to get anything in before we quickly
I do. When you said about Germans not being over-expression, you've got Nagelsmann there, who's very expressive, and Jurgen Klopp, who's very expressive also. But I understand what it is with.
I know, which is the contradiction.
Which
is the contradiction, because if you remember the post-match interview as well that the lady was doing with Rice, and I think it was, and most of the interviews where we've seen them ask Haaland questions, they've just been so proper and calm, and that's why I said probably in the normal interactions they're not as expressive as coaches.
But on that interview, I was laughing to myself, because the lady was talking to him as if he didn't understand English, and then she asked the question really slowly. And then he went, it was a great...
proper English.
Proper English. And it was
I realized that too. I've seen that in the past. Yeah. Hey, I've been
So
in that
that,
position, okay? I've been in that position where I was told to speak slowly because someone didn't understand English, and then it came across like as if I was almost being rude. So yeah, I understand the boat that she would have been in. Okay, let's move on to City Arsenal, which is the big match tonight. Sunday is going to be quite exciting. It's a Premier League title deciding match for sure. Whether it's deciding for these two teams or for Liverpool, we'll find out. The first time in 10 years, I'm reading this, that only 1 point separates the top three teams after 28 games. Arsenal, usually around this time, we've seen them go a little haywire, but they've managed to stay up there. City, of course, doing what City do. They just keep winning the title. They've won 3 in the past. Successive. So, City versus Arsenal. Just first up, Mark, who's winning this?
well, you would say City, wouldn't you? But don't underestimate Arsenal. We keep saying this about Arsenal, don't we? When are they going to falter? When are they going to fall away? And the top of the league with what, 8 games to go, is it, or 10 games to go? So I just think what he's done, the job he's done, Arteta. Yeah, what he's done there has been fantastic, and he's one of these guys who has expression. He's, when he's winning, he's the best winner. When he's losing, he's the worst loser.
Yeah.
But his teams are playing really, really well, and they've got an opportunity to get into the semi-final of the Champions League as well as winning the Premier League. And if they get a result today, I think they're 2 points ahead of Man City in third, and I think they're 1 point behind Liverpool. Liverpool are 1 point behind.
No, it's a 1 point difference. I think. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Whatever. But they're on the top of the league. Man City are third, aren't they? And so it's a huge game. And as I say, don't underestimate Arsenal. I think what they've got good quality players. Defensively, they've really got it together. I think going forward, they're as good as any team in the league. So it should be a really interesting game. I'm not going to say that there's going to be loads and loads of goals. I hope there is, but I think it's going to be a really cagey affair, and I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up in a draw. But the draw would help Liverpool then, because Liverpool are playing Brighton today, and they'll be looking to get 3 points as well. So it's but it's great, isn't it? It's great for the league that we've got 3, if not 4 teams that are vying for the championship. And if you were going to ask me who my favourites are to win it, I've got to say Man City, who are third.
I'm not asking.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the title.
No, to win the title, I would say
Liverpool was the obvious choice if you're going to win it.
No. I think Man City will go on eventually and win it, but you'll know a lot more tonight who's going to win it, because if Arsenal get a result, then yeah, I mean, and Man City, as Terry Phelan would say, haven't been playing well this season, and he thinks they won't win anything this season. So I'm not quite sure about that, but it's a huge game, isn't it, for the Premier League and for both teams? There's a podcast where it's an Arsenal podcast, and there's a guy on there who, when they win, he waxes lyrical about them, and then when they lose, they're the worst. Get Arteta out, get Saka out, get all of them out. So, but yeah, it's a big game, massive game tonight.
That's football fans. Yeah, it is a massive game. The last 13 times that these teams have played, City have won 12. The only exception, everyone will talk about it, this season when Arsenal beat Manchester City. So they've done it once. They could do it again. Crucially for Manchester City, Kevin De Bruyne will be back. Walker misses this. I think Walker is one of Manchester City's most important players.
Well, he is. I mean, it's obviously great going forward, but defensively, he's good. And when you look at what Arsenal have got, Martinelli, you've got obviously Saka on the other side. You've got players that can get at them, and with his pace. I mean, all of these players now, Arpit, they're all pacey. I mean, back in my day, you were either slow or quick. Nobody's slow anymore in the Premier League. So he's exceptionally quick, and that allows you to go forward a little bit more, because you know quite well that you're able to get back into position if you lose the ball. But he'll be a huge loss. De Bruyne, obviously, we know all about him. Is he fully fully match fit yet. Let's see. But my biggest thing would be if I was an
It's still
Arsenal
coming
player
back.
was to worry about Foden. He's the one, mate. Foden is absolutely. When we talk about world class, he could be world class, Foden. So he could be the one that, if I was Arteta, I'd be looking at that and trying to keep him quiet rather than De Bruyne, you know?
Yeah, Phil Foden, of course. City and Arsenal have big games coming up. City have FA Cup semi and Champions League quarter against Real Madrid. Arsenal, of course, in the Champions League as well. You mentioned Bayern Munich, that Arsenal were going to beat them. That run also comes into play, doesn't it? We often look at a game and we try to look at it as an individual game and say, okay, this is going to happen. But all these managers now, 10 games in the Premier League, your Champions League, your FA Cup as well. So much to think about for both Pep and Arteta.
Yeah, so much to think about players. You know what I mean? The beauty about being a domestic football club manager is you can see these players every day, and you know if someone's not, or needs a break or needs a bit of a rest, and this. As much as players back in the day never wanted to be dropped or rested, as they say now, I think it's very much a part of everyone's education that you need to be rested on some occasions. And when you've got huge games like this, I mean, when you're coming into April, May, and there when all the top games are happening, aren't they? The semi-finals of the Champions League, the finals, the FA Cups, and all of that. So they need to balance it, and it's a hard thing now. I mean, they get paid well, players, but they're playing an awful lot of football, and this is about managing now. They're called managers, and they need to manage, don't they? They need to manage the situation and try and get through as best as they can, because every game, next game is the biggest game. And I know it's a cliche, but we've always got taught at Liverpool, take one game at a time. As soon as you've won an FA Cup, forget about that. We're looking forward to the next FA Cup. And that's what they've got to do. They've got to compartmentalize it, do it day by day, week by week, game by game, and try and get through to the end somehow intact. So yeah, it's a big battle, but they'd rather be in this position than not in the position, languishing mid-table.
It's interesting what you said about winning a game and then focusing on something. It just takes me back to school. We had this teacher who said, how long does your happiness for a certain event last? And everyone said, yeah, if you talk to school, you're happy for a very long time. And he said, no, because the minute that is done, then your brain is thinking of the next step, which is like, okay, where do I get an admission? Which college do I go to? So, both these teams, of course, in that position. And most of our football, it's week in, week out, not like events in our life which take a year or two sometimes. Okay, so we'll just make a prediction for this one, and I'm glad we're doing this podcast today. If we had done it yesterday as we had originally planned or thought about, I would have said Bayern would smash Dortmund, and you would have said Dortmund would win, and I would look like a fool. Now we're doing City, Arsenal. I'm gonna kind of go with the same. I'm gonna win this. I do think Pep, compared to Arteta, has a lot more match experience, big match experience. Arteta is obviously getting there. His players are too. So I'm going to say Man City are going to edge this one.
Right. Okay. Man City at home, it's a fortress. Arsenal away, not so great. But I'm going to go for a draw. I think there's so much on this game. And the one thing about Manchester City this season, they've conceded goals on a regular basis. So I can see Arsenal scoring.
Yeah.
And if they score, it might be a Dortmund-esque game where they can defend. And they don't have to go forward. They can have these low blocks where, they're letting Man City come onto them, but every defensive unit is intact. So I can see that happen, but I can also see Manchester City scoring as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
You got to pick, so draw.
Yeah, 2-2 draw.
Okay, that'll be a good match if we get 4 goals out of it. Okay, and maybe a late drama as well. We've had a couple of matches already that we watched. You didn't sleep till very late, did you, after covering the Klassiker?
No, I couldn't get to sleep. I was thinking about the game and everything else, and how brilliant I was to get the result right, and I just couldn't stop patting myself on the shoulder. So my left shoulder.
Another match.
And by the way, what am I wearing? A yellow T-shirt in honor of the big Dortmund win. So, yeah, and then I stayed up and watched a horror show, Manchester United, and then went to bed on the
That's a good horror movie. Yeah.
95th minute. And I get up this morning, I'm saying Brentford rallied to rescue a draw. And I'm thinking, how the hell was that happening? Because Manchester United was so bad. But Brentford could have beat them 10 times over yesterday. Yeah. But anyway, that's football, isn't it? That's what they say. That's football.
Yeah. I stayed up watching that match, and trust me, it was quite a pain to watch for me as well. Just seeing Brentford chance after chance, and in the build up to the match, they were talking about moving to a bigger, better club, and how good he's been. And even before the broadcast, there was a lot of talk about how Brentford would work that deal. And I was just so glad he was not on his game yesterday, because he could have easily had a hat-trick. I think in the first half, he could have had a hat-trick, and United wouldn't have been able to do something about it. But yeah, United somehow unbeaten again in that match.
Yeah, I mean, and all kudos to them. They're under severe pressure. Would you like to be Ten Hag? Would you like to be these players who, forget about the money and all the lifestyle and all the rest of it? They're under severe pressure every single time they go out, because we're talking about them. We're talking about the Glass game they played, brilliant. This game, shocking. And that's been the thing with Manchester United all along, hasn't it? So, again, that's another rebuilding project, isn't it? Whether, obviously, Ten Hag stays is another kettle of fish. But we did one with Gareth Southgate, and I'm not sure that's going to be a good one. But, yeah, I've said this to you before, and I'll say it again. The Premier League needs a good Man United team in there. They do. And I'm hoping that next year they get out what they need to get out, and they get in what they need to get in, and then they start putting pressure on Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal's, and even Tottenham's as well. So, yeah.
Aston Villa's as well, Mark. But yeah, if you start talking about Manchester United, you know what is going to happen. We're going to go on for like 45 minutes or something. So we're promised to talk about the class. We're going to take this down the route of Liverpool or Manchester United. We're going to end the show over here. We've spoken about both. Any parting words before we go, Mark?
No, another good weekend of football. That was the result I wanted, Dortmund, for different reasons as well. But and I'm looking forward to the big game tonight. This could be who's going to win the Premier League with this result tonight, against Arsenal versus Man City, or Man City versus Arsenal. And add a rider to that.
Yeah,
Liverpool just keeping up with the Joneses, if you like. Get a good result today. That'll put them top of the league before the game happens. So, yeah, all good.
They have to beat Brighton, by the way. So that's not a done and dusted. But yeah, good luck to you on that. I'm obviously going to wear white and blue stripes for that match. And that's it. You're not going to say anything else. So I'm going to end the show with something that maybe the audience, whoever watches, won't understand completely. Nice yellow shirt, Mark. I know that's not only a Dortmund reference, but we won't elaborate on that anymore here. So, for watching on the Mark with Arpit.